This is the Aftermarket Radio Network. Hey, Karim Morsli here, the Automotive Podcast Guy, bringing you another key episode to make tangible impacts on all aftermarket people. Episode 651, with a commitment to training the likes I've never seen before. Everyone knows training is one of the most important parts of your business. Now, what kind of training do you do? Are you 100% committed to training? Does your culture reflect continual learning? In this episode, Karim Morsli from Winkler Automotive breaks down the essence of training in a very different way that will get you thinking large. If you are ready to take your training commitment to the next level, this is required listening. Hey, thanks to NAPA for sponsoring this episode. Recognize the power of being locally owned and nationally known with NAPA Autocare co-branding. Members who have completed a co-branding project see an average 23% increase in repair orders. NAPA Autocare brings you a 50% co-op on approved projects. It's a great program. Speak to your NAPA representative today. Hey, do you have a topic you'd love to discuss on the podcast? Hey, just email me at carm@remarkableresults.biz, B-I-Z, or message me on social media. Let's tell the world. Hey, a warm welcome to Karim Morsli from Winkler Automotive in Gaithersburg, Maryland. Hey, Karim, how are you?
I'm doing great, Karim. Thanks for having me today.
Me too. You've done shows with us before. Thank you for coming on again, because to me, this could be one of the biggest and most important episodes of the year 2021. We're going to talk about a training approach in your company, something that you have done that I am so amazed and so impressed with. And what Karim is here is, if you will, to share his philosophy on why training is so important. We're going to talk about the importance of competence. What's your goal with training? Why should you train? What has the training philosophy traditionally been? And he's thought all this stuff out, and he's got some great answers for you. We're going to talk about different types of training at different stages of a person's career. Is training part of your culture? Huge, man. That is huge. And is training all that's needed? So from one shop owner to another, right, Karim, this is it. You're going to say, listen, I'm talking to you. Or if not you, then who will train your people? You just can't set them and forget them. It's just not going to happen. And how many techs really are out there managing their own training career? And that's, I think, why they look to the owners of the company. Techs traveling faster than ever. So imagine if we didn't train people. So thrilled that you're here, that you have developed such an incredible training program in your company. So let's start. The training approach, same for all the positions in your company?
There's an overarching similarity, but then in terms of the effort that you're going to put in my opinion, there's going to be a difference depending on the positions. For me, chief among those is going to be, your training, your technician training approach. That's going to be something that it has to be calculated, it has to be sustained, it has to be progressive, it has to constantly evolve with the changes in technology. And that is why I think from the standpoint of the variety, technician training is the one that's going to change the most in your company. Service advisor training, administrative training, shop management training. There are some changes here and there, but overall, I would say, we know the underlying principles are pretty much the same throughout time. But in our case of the technician, when it comes to technical knowledge, for example, and skills, we're right now, for example, in the midst of massive changes, brought upon by the introduction of, ADAS systems, electric vehicles, hybrid vehicles, and so on. So the changes are there, they're real, and so the needs for training and the evolution of the training programs are definitely real.
I'm thinking about, I've heard a lot about, actually in the last couple of weeks, is assessments and competence.
I think that's the number one thing. So, I think primarily it all starts at recruiting. So when you are recruiting, in my opinion, we say garbage in, garbage out. And it's the same for recruiting. You've got to be able to assess the skills of the people, especially in technical positions. I come from a background of engineering, oil fields, IT. I've always been, whether I was the employee or the employer, there's always been a technical aptitude or skills assessment. And that's the first thing that you should do. But beyond that, during your training, you've got to constantly assess what your individual technician's, skill level is, because you want to give them, you never want to do a cookie cutter, approach to training. You want it to be individualized. You want to take the time to make sure that it's relevant, not only for the technician, because, that's where the retention is going to come from if there is interest, but more importantly also, or as equally important, for for your company. You need to train them on things that you are going to need as a company as well. If you have a gap in, electrical diagnostics, for example, then you're going to have to not only find the right technician to give that training to, you're going to have to assess that technician's ability to absorb that knowledge. And then you're going to have to, after you deliver that training, be able to assess their retention over time. So yes, definitely assessment comes in multiple stages, multiple facets, and it has to be done.
I've talked in the past about creating a training resume on every one of your people. It doesn't matter if it's the technician's name across the left side of the spreadsheet and the classes along the top. It doesn't matter. But, we get certificates, we get, recognition that we've attended these trainings. A lot of suppliers have a learning management system that tracks, a pre-test and a post-test, and you can see it all there. Those are the best ways to see it. But to your point, if 3 of my 4 people have had a GDI training and it's been a couple of years, the methodology of training has changed. Case studies have gotten different and better. There's so much more to learn. I mean, there's shortcuts that people constantly come up with. We can't ignore the fact that we have the responsibility, if we want our people to groom and grow and we want to become efficient, frankly, make money through training.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, I go back maybe to, it might be worthwhile talking about what's your philosophy as a shop owner when it comes to training. I'm going to go backwards so people understand where I'm coming from. I'm only 5 years in the industry, so there's good and bad with that. The good is I have fresh perspectives and I have the ability to still question a lot of the things that many other shop owners, because they've evolved so many years in that industry, will come to accept as a de facto, this is how we do it. And so you're really, when you do that, I think you close the door to your ability to take on, new ideas, fresher ideas, and implement them in your business. And also whether they're coming from other shops or another industry. So, training for me, I've seen has been something where, the approach has been very, reactive, remedial. We always thought about it that it's an HR thing. At best, it was opportunistic. Hey, you know what? You're talking to another shop owner. Hey, listen, I've got so-and-so. He's coming into town. He's going to do a training on so-and-so. Hey, why don't we get together? It's going to be cheaper. Well, okay, cool. I'll send the guys. It's been done, in my opinion, unprofessionally. We ask our guys to go after hours, after a very long day already of if we got a good team, usually my team gives 110% during the day. For me to ask them to extend that day another 3-4 hours, after work to go and learn, I don't think it's the right way to do it. It's not very professional. How many shop owners actually pay their people to go to these classes while they're there? I'm not talking about paying the class. I'm talking about paying your techs hours while they're there. And so, I think there's a lot of things to be said about how we handle training. I think the way it should be something that's sustained, something that's coming from the top down in your company. So from management, it should be a part of your culture. Learning is important, period. It's not, hey, once in a while it'd be nice to learn a new skill. No, it should be ongoing. It should be dynamic. It should be something that you're always updating, refreshing. So every year, just like every shop owner that I know that's successful has a marketing calendar, okay? They should have a training calendar, and they should have it thought through the same time that they do their marketing calendar, okay? And it should be based on the people they have at that time on their team. And, I think there's a lot more to training, and it has to be done during business hours. I think it should be paid. Pay them their flat rate so that they don't feel like they're losing an opportunity. These are important things, I think, that need to change in terms of the mind shift. It's important to add, shop owners need to understand, on average, for every $1 that you would spend on training, right? If you had a $100 training budget, on average, you can expect $453 in return. Find me a marketing campaign that yields that much over and over and over.
That's a 30 to 1 return, I think.
Yeah, it's about 353% ROI. So pretty good way of investing some money.
You know, some people may have a tough time grabbing onto that. But where I think the ROI for training comes in is the residual that happens. You've got your base core knowledge, then you start applying it, and then you learn on top of the learning on top of the learning.
Absolutely. A mind shift hopefully happens because, by the way, the most important part in training, at least to get it started, is creating self-awareness in your technicians or in your employees. And once you do that, you know, like you said, the residual will happen. But there's another one I think it's equally important from the business standpoint is retention. You know, a lot of people don't understand, you know, when an employee leaves, usually they leave because they've gotten to a point where they're bored. And so how do you fight boredom? You know, put them in front of a challenge. Give them the ability to grow themselves, because I think as human beings, at least I think that's the majority of human beings, is we feel a sense of accomplishment and a sense of joy and pride and happiness when we confront a certain, you know, difficulty in our life and overcome it. And that's what training allows you to do, in my opinion, if it's done well.
I loved you said self-awareness. I mean, it goes back to the emotional intelligence piece, and I find that fascinating that you would bring that up. What are you doing to bring the self-awareness, self-assurance to your people?
It comes back to some of the things I've talked about in other groups about my philosophy of training. Training, you know, it's basically, you know, if I would look at the definition, is to allow or to give somebody the skills needed or to upgrade their skills so that they can perform a job. So it's really job related. For me, self-awareness is more about development. You're talking about developing a person. You're talking about, you know, what does it take for that person to be able to start accepting training, using training properly and to their advantage, and ultimately to the company's advantage, right? To get a win-win. So that self-awareness has to come through how you behave in your shop with your team, how you treat your team members, how do you lead? You know, I read a lot of books, and honestly, I could not remember the name of that one, but I could do it, you know, post call. But the bottom line is, a good leader is a leader that asks questions, but not accusatory questions, leading questions into where you want them to go with their thinking. And ultimately, the goal is to create that self-awareness whereby they start to question themselves and say, well, wait a minute, I'm not sure. And then from there, when you've got that door opening, when somebody questions themselves and their ability, you know, to do something, now you have an opportunity to provide the assistance in form of training, maybe, to say, hey, how about we up your ability to do this properly, you know?
I love that. And, you know, you just got me thinking. I love to sit down with you because you're so smart when it comes to jolting my brain. And I'm sitting here saying, okay, I'm a shop owner. I've got a couple of techs, one with me 5 years, one with me 7. We've never had a training commitment. Maybe they've attended 1 or 2 classes, maybe on their own. Maybe they've done some video stuff. But guess what? Through osmosis, they're supposed to know all this stuff. And you don't really know how much it's hurting you. Just because they're there and they're seeing things every day doesn't mean they really get it, they know it, or they understand it.
You're 100% right. And so this actually goes hand in hand with something else I'm really big on is ASC certifications. And so why do I like ASC certifications? Well, number one, if I look at the technician population in general, it's an interesting population. It's made up of guys and gals who are very good mechanically. They're very comfortable working with their hands. They like, to some extent, their solitude, right? They like to work on something that's like kind of a machine. But what I find is very, very, very few of them are willing to find out where do they stand relative to other technicians in the technician population. And why is that important to me? Well, because I always tell my techs, I said, today you're working with me, and that's great, and I'm really happy for you. You never know what tomorrow brings. You never know what tomorrow brings. And what I want to make sure, most important of all, is that whenever you're going to go out there to seek another position in another shop, I want you to get a fair shake. I want you to get what you're worth. And so if you're presenting somebody and saying, hey, I'm a master tech, I'm an L1 master tech, that means something, especially if your ASC is still valid. But if you're going in a shop and say, hey, I'm an A tech or a master tech, it's incumbent upon the owner to try to find out what does that mean. And then you're not going to most likely you're not going to see eye to eye, because 90% of the times that a tech tells me, hey, I'm an A tech, and I start asking a few questions on electrical and scopes and whatnot, I quickly realize that no, it's not an A tech, it's B tech at best.
Wait a minute, he was an A tech at his other shop.
Yes, exactly. So it's important, because now we're talking apples to apples, right? You're able to say, okay, hey, this is what I'm worth, right? And so to me, that's very important, to create that ability for them to know where they're standing, what's the baseline you're on, and then grow from there and get that achievement, get that sense of fulfillment through achievement. And I think, to me, that's the best thing I could do for my technicians. And so, they say they know something, and there's no, it's tricky because you're dealing with egos, so you got to be very careful, right? You don't want to say, I'm going to test you, because, by the way, what I found out is technicians hate the word test. They hate the word test. A lot of them had problems taking tests.
Will the word assessment sit well with them?
I think assessment does, if you put it in what context you want to use it. So for me, I want to use it to help them improve. I can only help improve a situation if I know where the situation it needs improvement, right? And when you put it that way, it's not about a person, it's about a situation. So here's the situation. You want to be considered an A-Tech, and an A-Tech should be able to do quite well with, electrical, right? So let's see, what's your current knowledge of electrical? Let's see. And then where can we help you? Maybe you're great, right? And perfect. But there's always that little area where we say, hey, you know what? You're very good at these areas. Maybe you could strengthen that one. And so I think if we put it in that light, it's better. To me, a test is final. You take a test and that's it, right? For me, an assessment should be just a springboard to what are we going to do next? Are we going to do this or not?
Let's talk about the philosophies of training. I know you're extremely proactive. You've said a few things on what you believe in, but there's also like flavor of the month. Oh my God, we're failing in here. Let's go find a class. And oh, that's great. We did one class this year. We're good.
By the way, all these things, I went through them, right? And I got tired of it.
Wait a minute. You wouldn't be here talking about this if you had not failed.
Exactly, right. So I went through this and I got tired of it, right? I was very involved in putting classes together and we try to figure out what we could do, etc. But I realized a lot of times, I'd react on the basis of a comeback. Maybe not just one comeback, but maybe as I saw 1 or 2 or 3 comebacks in the same category, then it starts to okay, we need to do something. But when you do that, you're sending such a wrong message to the team. It's because a lot of them, especially as I was doing it, which was after hours, it was paid, but not the full rate, right? It's almost seen as punitive. And that is what I try to get away from in my company. Well, I want to be proactive so to avoid being, to be perceived as punitive. But when you're reactive to these kinds of things, I don't know about you, but when I have comeback after comeback in the same category, guys know that I start fuming. Okay. And then a week later, they find out Karim wants us to do a training on this. So now they're putting 2 and 2 together and they're saying, okay.
I don't know about you, Karim, but it must be the part.
Must be the part. So, okay. I have a whole process and we can talk about that, but the comebacks is a very, very important aspect of any shop to catch that, what we call remedial training opportunity. Right. And I think we have a very clear process here. Basically, the moment a car comes back, the tech will work on it under the supervision of the manager. Because I know all too well that, you will get some techs that will say, hey, you know what, I messed up. But unfortunately, it's not the norm. But I want to train them to know that it's okay to say that. So we have a way of doing this whereby, we want to make sure that we are giving them the opportunity to come to the front and say, so basically the manager is not going to be there to say, hey, you messed up. Knowing that there's another neutral pair of eyes looking at what you're doing as a tech, now we're giving you the opportunity to do the right thing, which is, oh, you know what? He saw it. Might as well just say I messed up. And then my reaction to him saying I messed up is one that's going to be encouraging for him to do it on his own, hopefully later on, if it does happen on a different type of job.
The ultimate assessment, a comeback. And you talk about a learning moment. I mean, I guess if you stop and say, okay, I goofed. What can I learn from this so that it never happens again? And to me, that's the ongoing assessment.
We introduced something else just to go further and extend on that. I have a pretty interesting flow that I share with the guys, and I tell them we need to become the learning organization. And what it means is, okay, you had a comeback. Okay, that's okay. Now, if we find out, hey, this is a comeback that's due to negligence or whatever, we handle it differently. But if it's truly a comeback that's due to not enough technical know-how on that particular topic, right? Then we also give the technician an opportunity to take that lesson learned and present it during a brown bag session and a lunch session to the rest of the team. So that now we're telling the tech, listen, there are some juniors behind you. Help them not make that mistake. Help them understand what you're doing to alleviate that mistake and what they can do to avoid it. And I think that's turning a negative into a positive, where the technician not only takes ownership, but now is in a position of leadership.
I love it. When you teach, you learn.
Exactly. You're not going to open your mouth unless you know what you're talking about.
Wow. Okay, being proactive, which is what you are when it comes to training. Share with us why you have this proactive instead of reactive mindset.
Primarily, number one is I wanted to make sure that guys understood that to be the very best company, the very best shop, to be able to claim that, we do it right the first time, it doesn't come easy. It doesn't come free. You've got to invest time and money, right? And I'm willing to do my part, and I'm asking them to do their part.
You also told me it starts at the highest level of management. I mean, you're always doing it too, right?
Oh, absolutely. You got to lead by example. You're absolutely right. You've seen me come on the stage. I came in 5 years ago in this industry. I knew one shop owner. Okay. And I quickly immersed myself. I actually ran after my first coaching company, which I'm very proud to say was ATI, because they helped me tremendously. And I ran after them. That first week on the job, I was calling them and say, hey, I want to be on your, I didn't even ask for a rebate. I should have, because they didn't have to hunt me down. But, you got to lead by example. So they know I'm always learning. I'm always questioning, because I want to learn. I'm curious, right? So I'm hopeful that somewhere they are feeding from that and seeing that, hey, Karim is doing it at his level. We should be doing it at our level too. It's only normal. One
of the things that you're here is I saw Karim make a presentation on his training commitment. I mean, you have created spreadsheets. You have created a philosophy around this, a logo, a commitment around it. And when I saw it, I realized that you could come on the show and talk high level, because we would need 3 hours to cover everything that you've done. And I think it's genius that person in 5 years has realized that you can talk all you want. Yeah, I'm big on training, but you put your money where your mouth was, and you actually created it. You made sure that it was probably the number 2 part of your culture in your company. You have career pathing for your people, all kinds of assessments. I'm very impressed, but we can't cover it all here. But I'm sure the people that know you could reach out to you, and you'd be more than willing to share the reasons, the critical reasons why this needs to be done. And that takes me to the different stages of a career, in types of training, even in retirement. To a point, people need to constantly learn.
Absolutely. So just to go back to what you said, I I am more than happy to share this with anybody who would love to get help on that or to get input on that. And I'm sure I'm going to learn from others, because I know I'm not the only one doing this. And I know a bunch of guys out there who are much further ahead of me than this. So, to me, I would be more than happy to help anybody out there who wants it. I want to add something. It is explicit in my mission statement. So my mission statement, reads basically, why we are in business, what we do, and our commitment to. And the commitment that I make is I have a commitment to my customers, I have a commitment to my community, and then I have a commitment to my employees, and last, I have a commitment to my company. And why am I doing this? Is because my company, if I do the first three already, it's going to benefit directly. But more importantly, what is my commitment to my employees? My commitment to my employees is to provide the best possible working environment to allow them to achieve their highest potential. So what does that mean? If you're not doing training, they're never going to be able to reach their highest potential. So it's implicit. It's in there. And it says, without that, I will fail. So, I always say, why do you have a mission statement? Because any project that you undertake as an owner, you can gauge it against your mission statement. And if it fits, you do it. If it doesn't fit, don't do it. So for me, the mission statement is a very important thing, obviously, because it will let you know that training, something that you need to do as an owner. But more importantly, I think there's different types of training as we go on through our careers. And I was very fortunate when I was in the oil fields to work with a company that took training very, very seriously throughout an employee's, progression, if you will, through, while working with them. And it starts with what we call induction training. And so my question is, how many guys out there do induction training? Induction training is really nothing else but onboarding, right? So I have instituted this, this past few months that, my service advisor position requires 8 weeks of training. And my technician requires 4 weeks of induction training. And what is induction training? Means, how do we do business? What is our mission statement? What is our vision? What do we believe in? You want them to get that foundation so that everything else that they do, especially when they're going to have to come to a point where they make a judgment call, they can make it against what your belief system is in your company. That induction also includes, what are your standing operating procedures? From the simplest ones of how do we open and close the shop to, how do we handle an irate customer, or how do we handle a comeback in the shop? All these things are important.
Hey, Karim here, and coming up, did you ever think about retirement training? Well, Karim explains what it is and why it's important. Hey, it's Karim, and I'm back to talk NAPA Auto Care and Auto Tech training. Now, as a repair shop owner, technical training is essential in the ever-changing world of automotive technology. Or as one Auto Care owner put it, train or you'll phase yourself right out of business. Thanks to NAPA Autotech, technicians can keep their skills sharp and their NAPA know-how up to date by attending hands-on classroom-style training for almost every vehicle make and model. You can choose from classes in diagnostics, heating and cooling, electrical, electronics, brake systems, ignition and fuel systems, plus a whole lot more. NAPA Autotech is the highest quality training the industry has to offer, and it's presented by experienced instructors who are ASE Master Certified technicians. Now, some have owned their own shops, and they all have a detailed automotive background. The trainers consistently receive excellent ratings from the technicians who attend. Even after the class is over, techs can access course information online with ClassPass. So when questions come up later, they can use ClassPass to get the answers 24/7 from any computer with an internet connection. Now, what's more, NAPA Autotech has been accredited by ASE's Continuing Automotive Service Education Program, reviewed against industry standards, and approved by peers. Don't just take my word for it. Auto Care Center owners who have taken advantage of Autotech training say that well-trained technicians are helping to increase their shop's repair capability and raise bay productivity. Now, that results in fewer comebacks, more satisfied shop customers, and reduced technician turnover. It's hard to beat that. Your servicing NAPA store can tell you even more about the benefits of Autotech training, plus the many other reasons to become part of the NAPA family with over 17,000 NAPA Auto Care centers from coast to coast, making it the largest network of independent automotive repair shops in the country. Here's what I love about induction training. We create our SOPs, we have them in a book, and somebody comes on board and they may never ever open it. No one may ever walk them through it. No one may even say, oh, chapter 9, section 7, this is how we handle an irate customer. And wait a minute, osmosis again. Give me your hands, put your hands on the book, and now you know everything.
Right, exactly. So one of the things I realized is, just like your employee handbook, I had the what I thought was a clever idea at some point to send a newsletter every week and then take a little piece of the, handbook so that people would learn, what's in there, right? I ended up telling myself it would take 2 years by the time I'm done with the whole handbook at this rate. So, but one of the things that you can use is, you talked about it early on, is the LMS systems, learning management systems. There are many of them out there, especially with small businesses like us. And so one of the ones that we decided to go with is Trenual. And I know a lot of very successful shop owners who use it. And what it does is it allows you to take your SOPs and transfer them into a digital format where your employee can sit behind the computer, go through it, and by the way, at the end, he is assessed on what he's retained from going through that SOP. You can have little questions in there, and then if he's got an 80% passing grade, great. Otherwise, he repeats it.
Tell me the name of that software again.
It's called Trenual, Trainnual. And what I did is, we had so many SOPs. We had over 100 SOPs. And I said to myself, listen, my time is better spent figuring things out and getting things created rather than doing this stuff. So you can just get their professional service. We offloaded all the SOPs to these guys, and for $2,000, they put it all in a virtual world, right? So money well spent, in my opinion, right? You can focus on training your people on how to use Trenual, and then that's it, right? And it's very easy to use. So I would urge you guys to look at these things. But, coming back to, induction training, take it seriously, prepare it, make sure that it's a condition of employment. When you're interviewing these people, tell them, hey, you're not going to touch a car for the first 2 weeks. Are you okay with that? I know some guys who do it for 4 weeks. I'm going to teach you how we do things here before you even touch a car. Or the service advisor, we're going to have you offline for the first 2 weeks. You're going to learn our ways before you can talk to a customer. Are you okay with that? So you've got to make that commitment. Hiring and them joining and coming on that first day, you understand that, yes, they can be productive and start making you money for that first month, but you're really jeopardizing their ability to be efficient and stay on in the long term if you burn that first bridge.
So wait a minute. We've been so pent up. We've needed somebody so badly that we throw them in the deep end of the pool and expect them to be good.
Right. By osmosis, like you say.
Osmosis. I do osmosis training in my business.
It's so funny because, how, especially in this day and age, look at how much time you spend recruiting, how much dollars you spend on Indeed or whatever platform you use to recruit that candidate. And what you're willing to do, don't jeopardize this. These are steps that are known to matter. Professionals will tell you, HR professionals will tell you, induction, / onboarding is not something you should skimp over.
Quickly go over some of these other great stages with me, because I love them.
So, continuation. So that's, look at it as that's the second step for me, right? It's like continuing education. Why? Well, you're progressing. You're coming in as a C-Tech and you're going to become hopefully a B-Tech, an A-Tech. You're going to need different skills. Now, I could hope that you maybe learn them on the job, but I think it's important to mix on-the-job training and theoretical training. That's very important because it really gives you the opportunity to really master and understand what's going on in the back end, right? It's not just a black box that you're fixing. And so, continuation training is really the training that I kind of focus on with my training program right now for my technicians. And one of the things I do is when they come in, I'm also assessing them in those first few weeks to figure out where is their actual skill set at, and what can I help them with. And then we go and develop a 6 month, 12 months, 18 months program for them to go through. And, I think it's important for the guys to know that this is my expectation of you, right? We know what their expectation of us is. It's, hey, give me cars, give me work, and give me a paycheck, right? Okay, fine. My expectation is you become the best. Can you do that? And I'm providing you all the tools for it, and I'm paying you for it on the way there.
Give me cars, give me time, give me a paycheck.
Exactly. So, it's, and I tell them that straight up in the interview, it's a win-win, and it's also, give and take, right? Give and take. So
I will do this for you if you do this for me.
Absolutely. And I think, hopefully it resonates with them. Then there's what I call a redeployment. We've seen it in many shops. You've got a tech that's gotten a certain interest in becoming a service advisor. And so I had that not long ago, and this kid is like, hey, I want to be a service advisor. I know it's easy to do. And I know what's going on in my head and so I just gave him a little test. I said, okay, let's do this. How about this? Boom, boom, boom. And he realized that, oh, I don't know. I said, exactly. But don't worry. If you want to know, we've got a training program for that, and you're going to get to know. They realize two things. One, it's a professional approach. Okay. We just can't just say, hey, you know what? I want to hang up I want to pull the tool cart in the storage area, and I just want to go in the front, right? Now, you can't just do that. You got to show me that you've got the basic aptitude, number one. And as far as skills, I can train you on that, but I can't assume that you've got the skills to sell at that point.
Some people are in the wrong roles too. And, as much as they've admired the service advisor and say that it's an easy job to do, that's, first of all, it's always the wrong thing to say, always. But, in my gut, I feel I'd love to spend more time with people. They always say technicians, they talk to cars. They don't talk to people. You put someone on the counter and they fall in love with it. It's like a natural born athlete who figures out one day that they have all the muscle memory that makes them the greatest defensive end in the league, right? And you never know. You could have the best service advisor you've ever had in your bays.
It's very true. So that's what I mean by redeployment, right? It's like you've got a resource in one job, but instead of potentially losing that guy. And I think that's even more relevant when you have multiple locations. It's a bit harder if you have a single location and everybody's performing to their best abilities and delivering results, right? So if I have a tech that all of a sudden wants to become, a service advisor, and I've got a really good team up front already, that's really tough. But if I have multiple locations, usually you have more abilities to move that person around. So it's something that, that exists for some of us out there. The other one is, and that's going to be all the time, is what I call remedial training. We train somebody on doing a certain job a certain way, and then they get a comeback. And then after, we do our analysis, we realize that, hey, you know what? It's been a while since you took the training on this thing. Maybe we need a refresher. Right, we need to redo it. So that's what for me remedial is really about. It's recognizing that sometimes we need refreshers. I need refreshers in many ways. So here's the thing: you'll find that you do more remedial training. There's something that I didn't talk about. I think is important is the level of competence on a certain skill. If you're using a skill over and over and over, the chances of you needing a remedial training is going to be very, very small. Right, because you're doing this, and so now it's almost committed to muscle memory in your brain. Right, you could do it eyes closed sometimes. So to me, remedial will depend on the type of skill that you want to have that technician acquire, but more importantly, how often do they use it? One of the things that I always say is, for every skill that you're going to assess in a person, there's 4 levels of competencies that you need to assess. The very bottom one is what I call unconscious incompetence. So at that point, you don't know that you don't know. I mean, that's it, right? So the next one up is you come to a point where you're trying to solve something and you realize you cannot do it. Now you're conscious about the fact that you're incompetent on that particular thing. By the way, I don't want to sound condescending. I know incompetent means it can come across very strong, but it's the immediate opposite of competence. So I'm sorry. Hopefully I'm not offending anybody out there, but I'm just calling it the easy way. So you've got conscious incompetence. So this is the most important basic level you need to have. And when I talk about self-awareness, That's self-awareness right now. That's the point where, so there's two ways you can go about that. You know you don't know, okay? And now comes character. You know you don't know, and you're going to say you don't know, and you're going to say, I need help. Or you're too proud, and you keep it to yourself that you know you don't know, and I can't give you that opportunity to learn.
And that bumps you back to conscious incompetence. I understand, yes.
In my eyes, yes. But in the eyes of the guy, he's already reached that conscious incompetence. And unfortunately, we've given up, we've passed an opportunity. The next one up is, as you're training and as you're applying that newfound knowledge, you're developing what we call conscious competence, right? But you're not there yet. You're still having to think. I have this policy in my shop is I don't want guys to have earpods. I don't want them to talk to anybody. And if they're going to have music, okay, I get that some people get into a zone with music, but I'm really against people talking on the phone, for example, when they're working on the car. Why? Because especially when they're in that conscious competence phase where they need to develop that muscle memory. And what they need to do is they need to think about everything they're doing. And as they're doing this repeatedly, now they're going to develop what we call unconscious competence. And that is where you become a master, right? Now you're doing, we walk. We're unconsciously competent at walking because we've been doing this, but we started by crawling. We were babies. We got up and fell, and, we went from, conscious incompetence to unconscious competence as babies. And we do it for everything in life, for everything, even marriage.
And the scary part about this, Karim, is when you don't realize, you got where you got, and then you ask yourself, well, everyone says that multitasking is something people don't do. So if I don't remember that I was doing it, multitasking has to exist, because there's no way I drove the car this fast, made 10 right turns, and now I'm here and I don't remember. So yeah, unconscious competence, get it.
Yeah. So I think remedial, when you look at these different things, I think depending on your level of competency, and according to these four, and these, by the way, are well known, well accepted, levels of knowledge or competency, right? That this has been established a long time ago. And so, I look at everything that I do according to this, right? And I'll tell people, hey, you know what? I am not a master yet. Nowhere near, right? Right now, everything I do in this industry right now, I'm at the conscious competence. And so that's why I need training. I need training because I know, and I need repetition, right? So that's one. Cultural training. You want and that starts with induction, by the way. You want all your employees to understand what you are about. What's our why? Why do we do this? What's our culture? So that's a form of training. Development, training, this is what I talked about earlier. Everything that has to do about the person themselves, not necessarily the job, but the person. These acquiring that self-awareness and how to use that self-awareness to grow yourself as a person, right? We as shop owners read a lot of books on leadership, on how to be good people, good leaders, how to be good in our community, how to be great to our employees, how to be great with our families. We should be doing the same thing for our employees, especially in our industry, because I think too many of our team members come from broken homes where they really are lacking that. And it would really help them, for those that are willing to hear it and listen to it, it would really help them in their lives. I'm really a big believer in that. And I have to thank a lot of people on the way here, shop owners, as well as coaching. I think of one guy in particular, Aaron Stokes, who, instrumental, and Greg Bunch, instrumental in teaching me things about, I knew I had it in me. They helped me formulate what it really was. And this is what I call servant leadership, right? I've always been about others, but when you put it in the terms of a philosophy that's out there, that exists, that other people, believe in and do, now you are able to identify other people that think the same way that you do and act the same way that you do in your company, in your community. Then you've got innovation training. That's important because now we're at a point where we're going to have to work on electric vehicles. And we're going to have to innovate on many fronts. We're going to have to innovate on how we do this kind of work, what type of work we're going to do, how we train ourselves. That doesn't exist out there. Find me one company right now that's providing this type of training. And when I mean by company, I'm talking manufacturers, right? We know the ongoing battle with Tesla is they think they're going to be able to service every single car they put on the roads. Well, that's wishful thinking. And we know there's going to be a critical point where that scale is going to tilt our way because there's just too many cars that they can handle. So, we're going to have to be innovative. So how do you innovative training? What does that mean? What does that mean? How do you train people to be innovative?
It's exciting. I think that part's exciting. I mean, let us understand that we're capitalists, we're entrepreneurs, and we'll figure it out.
We'll figure it out. We've always figured it out in this industry. That's one thing I've learned, And then the last one, but not the least of which, is what I call retirement. I have one guy right now, probably 2-3 years, and we talk about it, we joke about it, and that's why I've launched the apprentice program with him, because I want to be able for him to not only give back, right, to new technicians, but also maybe to have him morph into a different capacity once he retires, which we've talked about, which would help him retire as well, because a lot of these guys don't know what to do with their lives after that.
Life after training. I mean, not the afterlife, but life after X, fill in the blank, whatever it was you were doing.
Yeah, I mean, he's been doing this for 35 years. You expect him to just overnight, and I know he loves what he does. So that,
I have to tell you, that is something we have to think through, and I wouldn't mind kind of leading that and maybe doing some episodes on that. What happens post-retirement? And I know we've done it with shop owners, but what about all the other great people that, are on our counters and in our bays? Is there college training, mentoring? I mean, there's all kinds of stuff. We got to talk about that.
Yeah. I had the opportunity to interview a guy who had been turning wrenches for almost 35 years, had an injury, basically destroyed his rotator cuff, and he just, that's it. He couldn't work. He couldn't put his hands above, Anyways, he interviewed with me, and I told him, I said, listen, I'd love to help you. I just need somebody who's dynamic and able to work, so that it's not going to work. But here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to help you transition. He goes, what do you mean? He goes, well, you have to accept the fact that it's over for you on that level. And I wish you could have seen it coming before the injury, because, you're not a young chicken anymore. But I told him, I said, let's talk. I'll call you and let's talk and let's figure out what we could do with your knowledge, because he was a bank of knowledge, right? And I told him, and then we called and I talked to him. I said, listen, have you ever considered working for companies like, Identifix, All Data, and, they have the ability to have call center based agents and in a remote setting as well. And you could help other technicians in the shop without being there. He goes, really? And I had no idea. But these are the kind of things that, we as shop owners can see are possibilities for these aging, older technicians who, in his case, he's being forced out. That's the saddest part. There's no time to prepare.
We shouldn't go out to pasture. We should, stay in the barn, if you will.
Absolutely. And especially if you got that guy. I mean, look, nobody does 35 plus years in this industry if they don't love it.
And you're right. Up in the Northeast, all the drippings and the cold and the broken backs and stuff. To your point, I think there's an evolution in our industry that we're going to need more people that are extremely talented, that put in their years on the front lines, Karim, that we can use them for remote diagnostics and call center information. And who knows, regionally, hey, we could have somebody helping. I've got this, wild idea. I've done an episode on remote service advisors. And why can't someone help and support your place? We've got cameras, cloud-based software. We've got all that great knowledge that we've had on our counters or have in our bays. We can see what's going on. We can take the residual phone calls. We can even be a leader and teach some of the young people coming up. You would hire this person in this remote setting to lead new faces, new people. Yeah.
Yeah. There is a lot of wealth in having, I think, that interaction between the front and the back. That's something that, if you virtualize, you can lose. But there's ways to explore things. I agree. There's ways to enhance also. Hey, you know what? You want to work 2 or 3 days a week from home? We can do that. We have the technology. It comes down to your processes.
Karim, I'm not sure we've done justice to your passion for training, but thank you so much for this. I need to stay in touch with you, and I will, to see how this continues to be. And you could be one of those nationally sought-after speakers that hopefully will go to other shop owners to motivate them to make training a huge part of their culture. Let's kind of wrap this up.
If I was going to end on this, is two things. Number one, I'm going to borrow a little thing from, my personal story. When I started out young, like I said before, I got the opportunity to work in one of the very best companies in the world when it comes to training. This company, on average, will pay over $150,000 during the initial training of a young employee. And that initial training lasts about 2 years. And that $150,000 does not include the salary that person is making. I loved it. I loved that job. I identified to that job. My wife there are so many jokes going around that job with my wife and my friends that it's ridiculous because I so identified. We used to have a saying that, if you cut me, I bleed the color of that company, basically, right? And it was in red, but, I left that place, and I want everybody here to understand why I left that place and why it's critical that you undertake training only under one condition. And I'm going to be as blunt as I can. You've got to give a damn. If you don't give a damn about your people, about their training, about their ability to be better than they are today, they're going to figure it out. And they're going to smell this miles away, and you're going to be doing this for naught. And so please sell yourself on the importance of training before you undertake that, because this is something that you're going to do, and you're going to have to do with equal passion as you like to sell a job and see that money come into your bank account. So just think about that. You can't fake that one. People will see right through you. And so that's the personal story that I wanted to share. And the last thing I wanted to share is a quote that I really, really live by. I really appreciate this guy. He's one of these people that I admire, and I know many of you guys do too. And it's from Richard Branson of the Virgin Group. He founded that group. And if you look at the history of that group, it's absolutely phenomenal what he's achieved in the small amount of time he's been on Earth. And one of his quotes is, train people well enough so they can leave, but treat them well enough so they don't want to. And that's the difference between the superbly successful companies and the average company, in my opinion.
What a perfect ending. There's nothing more to say. Thank you. Thank you so much for being here, Karim Morsli, Winkler Automotive, Gaithersburg, Maryland. We got to do more on this, my friend.
I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you, Karim, so much. I have a lot of passion for this, and like you said, if anybody's out there wants me to talk to them or their team about this, I'd be more than happy. And again, thanks for the opportunity, and I look forward to the next one, hopefully.
Thanks for being on board to listen and learn from the premier automotive aftermarket podcast. Until next time.